It's a massacre that happened near El Paso a little more than 100 years ago, but it's rarely taught in Texas high school history classes.
Now the push to get more people to learn about the Porvenir Massacre continues by historians, educators, and descendants of those who were killed.
KFOX 14 News at 9's Nic Garcia brings us the story of how this massacre could pave the way for Mexican American studies to be taught in other states as well.
It's a story that very few people know about.
Porvenir. It means future in English. But those who lived there did not anticipate the tragedy that would happen January 28, 1918.
That they were murdered without justification. That the justice system failed them.
There once was a village called Porvenir, where 15 men stood by each other in fear.
That winter night 103 years ago, Texas Rangers and area ranchers stormed the village of Porvenir, separating the women, children, and Anglos from men of Mexican descent. 15 innocent men and boys were lined up, shot, and killed. The village destroyed. The Rangers had accused the men of being bandits.
They just wanted to blame someone, and that's who they decided to go after.
And many speculate their Mexican heritage made them an easy target. Arlinda Valencia is the descendant of one of the men killed in Porvenir that day.
This is my great-grandfather. His name is Longino Flores.
No one was charged by a grand jury for killing Flores and the 14 other men. The massacre was the tipping point for some lawmakers, specifically Texas State Representative Jose Canales. In 1918, he led an investigation into the Texas Rangers, who were never charged. 100 years later, another lawmaker, Texas State Representative Jose Rodriguez, announced plans for a historical marker. This historical marker is almost all that remains of what happened not far from here in 1918. This and the story Arlinda fights to keep alive.
After I'm gone, I hope my family continues to keep it alive, because you don't want to have it happen again, although we know that it does.
It's one of countless atrocities reportedly committed against Mexicans and Mexican Americans throughout the Southwest United States in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Lynchings, shootings. There are even records of people being burned alive. And for decades, most of those stories have gone untold. What happened at Porvenir may not have been taught in your history class, but it is being taught now. It's a lesson covered in Mr. Joaquin Tapia's high school Mexican-American Studies classroom and in dozens of other classrooms in Texas. While many high schools across the U.S. may teach ethnic studies, only the Lone Star State offers Mexican-American Studies to high school students.
They can see the struggle of the Mexican-American, what the Mexican-American has endured in the past and what they have overcome to get to where we are today.
Tapia has been teaching the course for years, even before the curriculum was adopted by the State Board of Education in 2018. He says when he teaches about the Porvenir Massacre, his students often ask, why?
So you gotta, as a teacher, I gotta explain to them that, hey, you know what? Times were very different back then. There was a lot of racism, which there still is, discrimination, which there still is, negative stereotypes, which there still is, towards our people.
The Porvenir Massacre was also the deadliest mass shooting in Texas history. That is until August 3rd, 2019, when terror returned to West Texas, leaving 23 innocent people dead at the Cielo Vista Walmart. Valencia believes there's a striking similarity between the mass shooting in her hometown of El Paso and the Porvenir Massacre, where her great-grandfather was killed.
I mean, those men at Porvenir were killed because of the color of their skin. That's exactly what happened here 100 years later. They were killed for the color of their skin.
Both Valencia and Tapia say this is why it's important to teach Mexican-American history to all students.
It would be great if every high school here in the district, the Isla district, in the surrounding districts, okay, and even in the state of Texas, would open up a Mexican-American history.
Tapia says that's the goal of this course, so all who have been part of the United States throughout history can be represented.
Our blood, sweat, and tears also helped build this beautiful country. You know, it was also us. We have our history there. The only thing is, it's not in our history books.
The land where Porvenir once stood is barren now.
Like they never existed. But I'm here, proof that they did.
Living proof, and part of how the story lives on. Nic Garcia, KFOX 14 News at 9.
The Texas Rangers sent us a statement saying there is no relationship between the modern Texas Rangers law enforcement agency and the ones blamed for the Porvenir Massacre. Their response goes on to say, quote, "The modern day Texas Rangers are comprised of principled men and women of great skill and integrity who are fully committed to the rule of law." The Mexican American Studies course that is taught in some schools in Texas, including here in El Paso, was adopted by the Texas Board of Education in 2018.
It's actually the first Mexican American Studies course to be implemented by any state board of education. Representative Georgina Perez, the Texas State Board of Education representative for the El Paso area, says creating this course took years of research. Perez says studies conducted in Texas and all across the state found that high schoolers who were enrolled in an ethnic studies course were more likely to graduate and pursue higher education. They were also reportedly more likely to participate in class, miss fewer days of school, and have fewer disciplinary issues.
When these studies were shared with my colleagues at the board, it was a no-brainer. And so it was a very short amount of time before it was unanimously adopted. It was just a very good day for all Mexican Americans, for all students, for all teachers.
And that class is offered to students in the Isla Independent School District at Eastwood Hanks and Del Valle High Schools. San Elizario High School offers the course. And we reached out to El Paso and Socorro ISD, among other districts, to find out if they too are offering the course, but we haven't heard back.